Prime Minister Modi launched the Startup India Action Plan on the 16th of January 2016. That's 2 years ago. The idea was to invest 10,000 crore over 4 years in a fund of funds to set the cat among those entrepreneurial pigeons who were struggling to get cash. Halfway into the program, 2 years out, either the cat was extremely lazy or the pigeons were comatose because the government disbursed only 90.62 crores. I'll say that again, 90.62 crores. You heard me right. Halfway through, they have disbursed less than 1% of the corpus to 17 alternate investment funds, who in turn have invested 337.02 crores in 75 startups. Even by Government of India's exalted standards, this is a staggering underachievement. In a recent poll, over 33,000 startups said they have gained virtually nothing from this initiative. Worse, if you, like a lot of BJP MPs, believe in black magic, Startup India seems to have become a bad omen for a once thriving venture capital industry. In 2016, nearly 7,500 startups registered in India. The very next year, they plummeted to less than 1,300. That's a six-fold drop. Just in Bangalore, 1,316 startups were there in 2016. That shrank to 224 in 2017. And here's the tragic irony. This has happened despite the government floating at least 50 plus sector-specific or agnostic schemes, including Single Point Registration Scheme, SPRS, Bank Credit Facilitation Scheme, BCFS, Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, PMMY, scale-up support for incubation centers, among several other such acronyms in this alphabet soup. What Prime Minister Modi must realize is that the path to tax hell is paved with good intentions. He gave several years of a tax holiday on profits, hoping to thrill startups with this largesse. That was a bit innocent, wasn't it? Because what's the point of a tax exemption when startups won't make profits for 5, maybe even 7 years? Worse, startups were strangled with upfront service taxes. Now, when you have to pay upfront service taxes, you have to deposit cash with the government. That forced them to park nearly a fifth of their equity with the tax department. If a tax incentive had to be given, it should have been a service tax and GST holiday, not an exemption on profits. So quite apart from giving them risk capital, the government actually took away what they had. As if that wasn't enough, the tax guys asked them to capitalize their marketing and brand building expenditure, further increasing the tax burden. And continuing with the tax hell story, for the PS de resistance, I would urge you to log into change.org and read a petition filed against the atrocious angel tax. The government has become the judge, the jury, and the executioner here. It decides what an angel investor should pay for equity in a startup. But if the angel investor values the startup higher than the archaic bureaucratic calculus, it gets a 30% tax slap. Got it? Here, let me simplify it for you. Now, let's say an angel investor values a startup at 100 rupees. But our tax boys think it's worth a 50. So what do? We, that is our tax boys, merrily slap a notice on the startup saying that you have gained an extra 50 rupees in income. So you better pay us 15 rupees in an entirely unheard of, it's entirely unprecedented, it's so grossly silly tax that you wouldn't find it even there in Timbuktu. Small wonder that our startups are besieging on change.org. They are saying, we request the Honorable Finance Minister to strongly review Section 56.2 and Section 68 with retrospective effect to help us focus on building our startup business. Now, you must remember that 9 out of 10 startups actually fail. But under the kind of Startup India Action Plan that we have crafted, the kind of regressive tax regimen that we have come up with, I'm convinced that we shall soon find our hallowed place in the Guinness Book of Records with a 10 on 10 failure rate. If you're still unconvinced, here is how even Uncle Sam messed up when it tried to play venture capitalist. Solyandra was a Silicon Valley startup founded in 2004 to make solar panels without polysilicon. The American government thought it could build a champion which could take on cheaper Chinese rivals. So they gave it a government guaranteed loan of $535 million. Now that's approximately 3,500 crores. So a government guaranteed loan of 3,500 crores under their Energy Policy Act of 2005, which launched their version of our pretty similar to our Startup India Action Plan. Their economic logic was as daft and as stupid as ours. The idea that the Yankee government could become a venture capitalist and nurture promising startups. What followed was an unmitigated disaster. In February of 2008, the price of polysilicon fell sharply, handing back a huge competitive advantage to Chinese rivals. But Solyandra's management used its bounty of, it got undeserved government cash, lots of it, so it used that to make questionable spending decisions. It wasted the loan money on state-of-the-art equipment which went unused. Like many other startups scouting for capital, Solyandra was accused of exaggerating sales, exaggerating the nature of contracts, boosting growth predictions, and leaving out unflattering information for investors, the press, and customers. Now, a sharp venture capitalist would have caught this sleight of hand, would have caught this chicanery. But a leaden-footed, some would even say complicit bureaucrat was simply outfoxed. Eventually, Solyandra filed for bankruptcy in August 2011, proving the brutal truth that a government which wants to play VCPE, venture capitalist private equity, that government shall come to inexorable grief. Governments simply do not have the wherewithal, acumen, or DNA to pick market winners. There is simply no escape from this merciless axiom.